Imagine walking through the gates of a legendary medieval castle. The walls are hundreds of years old. Soldiers in shining armor stand guard. Golden plates filled with roasted meat cover the tables. Fire burns inside massive fireplaces. Everywhere you look, it feels like you've stepped into a fairy tale. But then, after the greatest feast of your life, your stomach sends you a reminder. You need a bathroom. You ask a servant, expecting a royal room made for a king. Instead, he points toward a tiny wooden door hidden inside the castle wall. You open it, and the fairy tale disappears. Inside is a cold stone room. No sink, no mirror, no running water, no luxury. Just a stone seat with a hole. You sit down, and seconds later you hear something falling. Because your waste isn't disappearing through a pipe. It's dropping straight down through the castle wall. Welcome to the disgusting reality of medieval castles. The place we imagine as a symbol of wealth and power was also one of the smelliest places humans ever lived. And strangely enough, that tiny bathroom was actually one of the smartest inventions inside the castle. It was called a garderobe. It looked simple, but the idea behind it was clever. Builders placed toilets inside the thick outer walls because they understood one powerful force: gravity. Everything went down through a narrow stone shaft. No pipes. No flushing. No plumbing. Just gravity doing the work. Depending on the castle, the waste ended up in a pit outside the walls, or sometimes inside the moat. Yes, the beautiful water surrounding castles in movies wasn't always clean. Sometimes it contained garbage, animal waste, and human sewage. But the toilet itself wasn't even the worst part, because someone had to clean it. And that job belonged to one of the most forgotten and horrifying professions in history: the Gong farmers. Their name sounds harmless, but their work was anything but. When castle waste pits became full, these workers climbed underground into darkness and removed years of human waste by hand. No modern equipment, no protective suits, no masks, just a shovel, a bucket, and a job almost nobody else would do. The conditions were deadly. Toxic gases built up inside these pits. Some workers lost consciousness within seconds. Others never came back out. Yet despite doing one of society's most necessary jobs, Gong farmers were treated like outcasts because the smell followed them everywhere. Ironically, they were paid extremely well, because nobody wanted their job. But the bathroom wasn't the only disgusting part of castle life. The floors weren't cleaned like they are today. Straw covered the ground to absorb dirt and moisture, but it also trapped spilled food, insects, animal waste, and disease. Dogs walked through dining halls. Mice lived inside walls. Food scraps stayed where they fell. If you traveled back to a medieval castle, the first thing you would notice wouldn't be the beautiful architecture. It would be the smell. Smoke from fireplaces, sweaty clothes, rotting food, animals, and toilets built into the walls. People knew the smell was terrible, but they didn't understand germs. They believed diseases came from something called bad air. So they carried herbs, flowers, and perfumes, hoping good smells would protect them. But there was another problem. There was nothing like toilet paper. People used whatever they could find. Leaves, moss, grass, hay, old cloth, sometimes wool. Comfort was not exactly a priority. And using the toilet during winter? That was a nightmare. Many garderobes were built directly into castle walls, meaning freezing wind entered constantly. Imagine sitting on a freezing stone seat while cold air blows around you. Even kings had to experience it. But the strangest part? These toilets sometimes became the weakness of the strongest castles. In 1203, Chateau Gaillard in France was considered almost impossible to defeat. Massive walls, powerful defenses, a fortress built by one of Europe's greatest kings. But attackers eventually discovered a weak point connected to the castle's sanitation system. The exact details are still debated, but the story became one of history's most embarrassing reminders. Sometimes the greatest weakness of a castle wasn't the gate. It was the toilet. But those disgusting toilets later became valuable to historians. Inside ancient waste pits, archaeologists discovered seeds, bones, grains, parasite eggs, and traces of imported foods. By studying what people threw away, scientists discovered what medieval people ate, what diseases they suffered from, and even how wealthy they were. The toilet became an unexpected time capsule. And here's another surprising fact. Medieval people did bathe. The idea that nobody washed during the Middle Ages is mostly a myth. Rich nobles had wooden tubs filled with buckets of heated water. Servants spent hours preparing baths. It wasn't impossible. It was just expensive. Even queens had portable toilets hidden inside beautiful wooden chairs called commodes. From the outside, they looked royal. Inside, they were just fancy chamber pots. Because no matter how powerful someone was, one thing remained impossible. Nobody could escape the problem of human nature. Kings could build castles. Queens could wear gold. Warriors could conquer kingdoms. But nobody could invent a flushing toilet. For hundreds of years, gravity was Europe's greatest plumbing system. And maybe that's what makes medieval castles so fascinating. We look at them and imagine kings, battles, romance, and glory. But behind those giant walls were ordinary human problems. Cold rooms, dirty streets, strange bathrooms, and forgotten workers who kept entire kingdoms functioning. Because history isn't only written in throne rooms. Sometimes the smallest room in a castle tells the biggest story. So the next time you see a magnificent medieval fortress, remember, behind every powerful king, every legendary knight, there was a tiny stone toilet reminding humanity how far we've come. Because history is always stranger than fiction.